Africa, the motherland, a continent with a history so rich, so vibrant, it makes you want to do a DNA test just to find a connection. But let's be real, Africa has seen its fair share of political upheavals. It's like every time a leader gets comfortable, bam, overthrown. Today we're diving into the stories of overthrown presidents across the continent. We're talking about the rise, the fall, and the aftermath of these dramatic power shifts. Buckle up, people, because we're about to take a wild ride through some of the most turbulent moments in African history. Let's kick things off with Kwame Nkrumah, the father of Ghana. This dude was a legend, leading Ghana to independence from British rule in 1957. He was all about Pan-Africanism, uniting the continent and sticking it to the colonial powers. But here's the thing about being a visionary leader. Sometimes people just aren't ready for your genius. In 1966, while Nkrumah was off on a peace mission in Vietnam, the military swooped in. They claimed he was becoming too powerful, too authoritarian, but was it a genuine concern or a convenient excuse for a power grab? You decide. What we do know is that Nkrumah's overthrow sent shockwaves across Africa, a stark warning to other leaders who dared to dream big. Next up, we're headed to the Congo, where things got messy real quick. Patrice Lumumba, the country's first democratically elected prime minister, was a man on a mission to free Congo from Belgian colonial rule. He succeeded, but his victory was short-lived. Lumumba was a fierce critic of Western imperialism, and that didn't sit well with, well, the West. In 1961, he was overthrown in a coup supported by, you guessed it, Belgium and the United States. And if that wasn't bad enough, Lumumba was assassinated shortly after. The details of his death are still shrouded in mystery, but one thing's for sure. His assassination was a major turning point in Congolese history, plunging the country into decades of instability and violence. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to meet Thomas Sankara, the Che Guevara of Africa. This dude was a revolutionary through and through. He came to power in Burkina Faso in 1983 and immediately set about transforming the country. Sankara was all about social justice, economic independence, and fighting corruption. He changed the country's name from the colonial Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, meaning land of upright men. He promoted women's rights, tackled environmental issues, and even sold off the government's fleet of luxury cars. But Sankara's radical reforms made him enemies, both at home and abroad. In 1987, he was betrayed and assassinated in a coup led by his close friend and comrade, Blaise Compaoré. Sankara's death was a devastating blow to the hopes of many in Burkina Faso and across Africa. Now, let's talk about Muammar Gaddafi, the flamboyant and controversial leader of Libya for over 40 years. Gaddafi was a complex figure, to say the least. He was a dictator who ruthlessly crushed dissent, but he also implemented social programs and invested heavily in infrastructure. Gaddafi was a walking contradiction, a self-proclaimed revolutionary who rubbed shoulders with world leaders while simultaneously sponsoring terrorist groups. In 2011, the Arab Spring uprisings reached Libya, and Gaddafi's regime crumbled. He was captured and killed by rebel forces, ending his decades-long rule. Gaddafi's death marked the end of an era in Libya, but it also plunged the country into chaos and violence that continues to this day. Our next stop is Zimbabwe, where Robert Mugabe, the country's longtime ruler, met his downfall after nearly 4 decades in power. Mugabe was a hero of Zimbabwe's independence struggle, but his legacy became tarnished by authoritarianism, corruption, and human rights abuses. He clung to power through rigged elections and violent crackdowns on opposition. But in 2017, the military finally had enough. They placed Mugabe under house arrest and forced him to resign. The country celebrated his removal, but the future of Zimbabwe remains uncertain. Mugabe's story is a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and the dangers of staying in office for too long. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to delve into one of the darkest chapters in African history, the reign of Idi Amin in Uganda. Amin seized power in a military coup in 1971 and quickly established himself as a brutal dictator. He expelled Asians from Uganda, murdered hundreds of thousands of his own people, and ruled through fear and intimidation. Amin's eccentricities were almost as legendary as his brutality. He declared himself King of Scotland, gave himself a bunch of fancy titles, and even proposed marriage to Queen Elizabeth II. Alright, next up, we're headed back to the Congo, where Mobutu Sese Seko ruled with, well, an iron fist for over 3 decades. Mobutu came to power in a coup back in 1965, promising stability and prosperity. But instead, he plundered the country's wealth, suppressed dissent, and turned Zaire, as he renamed the country, into his personal playground. Mobutu was, notorious for his lavish lifestyle, his signature leopard skin hats, and his, let's say, brutal methods of silencing opponents. But then, in 1997, his luck finally ran out. Rebel forces, led by Laurent Désiré Kabila, overthrew Mobutu, forcing him to flee the country. Mobutu's reign, in the end, served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of corruption and dictatorship. Remember Blaise Compaoré, the guy who overthrew Thomas Sankara? Well, he managed to hold on to power for 27 years, but even he couldn't escape the wrath of the people forever. Compaoré came to power in 1987, promising to continue Sankara's legacy. But he quickly abandoned his former friend's ideals, embracing authoritarianism and enriching himself and his cronies. In the 2014, mass protests erupted when Compaoré tried to amend the constitution to extend his rule. Faced with mounting pressure, Compaoré resigned and fled the country. His downfall was a testament to the power of people power, and a reminder that even the most entrenched dictators can be toppled. Now let's turn our attention to Egypt, where Hosni Mubarak's 30-year reign came to an abrupt end during the Arab Spring uprisings of 2011. Mubarak was a former military man who ruled Egypt with an iron fist. He maintained a tight grip on power, suppressing dissent and stifling political opposition. But in 2011, inspired by the uprisings in Tunisia and other Arab countries, Egyptians took to the streets, demanding Mubarak's ouster. The protests, centered in Cairo's Tahrir Square, were met with violence by Mubarak's security forces. Last but not least, we come to Omar al-Bashir, the former president of Sudan, who was ousted in 2019 after months of protests. Al-Bashir came to power in a military coup in 1989 and ruled Sudan with an iron fist for 3 decades. He was accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide for his role in the Darfur conflict, which left hundreds of thousands of people dead and millions displaced. In 2018, protests erupted in Sudan, fueled by rising food prices and a deteriorating economy. The protest quickly morphed into a nationwide movement demanding al-Bashir's removal. As we've seen, the stories of these overthrown African presidents are complex and often tragic. They remind us of the complexities of leadership and the ever-changing political landscape in Africa. These stories are not just about the past. They have shaped the present and will continue to influence the future of the continent. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights.